In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 NBA games happening on March 5th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Utah Jazz versus Washington Wizards. The Utah Jazz head into Capital One Arena on Thursday to take on the Washington Wizards in an NBA matchup. Utah is coming off losses to the Nuggets and the 76ers, and Milwaukee is waiting for them next on the schedule, so this stretch is not exactly kind to them. The Jazz have dropped 24 of their last 30 games, which says a lot about where their season is mentally as much as it does on paper. Washington is coming off setbacks against the Magic and the Rockets, and the Pelicans are next in line for them after this one. The Wizards have lost 49 of their last 67, so it is not like they are cruising through the calendar either. Utah is still without Lauri Markkanen, Jusuf Nurkic, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Vince Williams Jr., which strips away a lot of stability and star presence from their rotation. At the same time, the 76ers have already ruled out Joel Embiid and are watching Kelly Oubre Jr. and VJ Edgecombe, both listed as questionable, which shows how chaotic the injury landscape has been around these recent matchups. This spot has the feel of a matchup between two teams more focused on lottery odds than climbing the standings, and usually that type of game makes taking points pretty tempting. Utah has actually been friendly to bettors with a 33-29 record against the spread, so backing them has not been a crazy idea over the course of the season. Here, though, the number to lay with Washington is small, basically just a short cushion, and the Wizards are at home, where 11 of their 16 wins have come, which gives their profile a little more substance. This game also marks Trae Young's debut in Washington, which is not just a bump in on-court playmaking, but a jolt of energy for a fan base that has not had much to cheer about all year. For the first time this season, the Wizards crowd has a real reason to get loud, and that kind of buzz often shows up in effort plays, loose balls, and late-game focus that never shows up in the box score but matters anyway. With that new spark and a modest spread, Washington is more likely to handle business and come away with a win that actually feels like something. As our first pick for this matchup, the Washington Wizards to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Utah's offensive profile is loud, averaging 117.8 points per game on 46.6% shooting from the field, but the defensive side is leaking badly, allowing 125.5 points on 48.9% shooting. The Jazz are hitting 34.6% of their threes and converting 79.5% at the free throw line, so the scoring talent is there, yet they are giving up 37.2% from deep and relying on 43.8 rebounds per game to survive all those extra chances they allow. Washington, on the other hand, is averaging 112.2 points on 45.9% shooting, which is slightly less explosive but still plenty capable of getting up and down the floor. The Wizards are knocking down 35.3% of their shots from beyond the arc and 77.2% at the stripe, while they are surrendering 123 points per game on 47.7% shooting to opponents. They allow 36.6% from three and collect 43.3 rebounds per game, numbers that reflect a team that runs, gives up a lot, but can also struggle to sustain efficient offense for 4 full quarters, especially when rotations shorten or fatigue creeps in. On paper, these stats scream pace and leaky defense, but context matters, and tired legs, missing stars, and shifting rotations often drag efficiency down more than the raw scoring averages suggest. With key players out, secondary options asked to do more than usual, and both teams stuck in long losing stretches, possessions can turn into forced shots, slower sets, and stretches of sloppy execution that pull the overall scoring down. In a spot like this, where the recent grind and personnel issues weigh on shot quality and rhythm, the matchup has a good chance to land on the lower side of the expected scoring range rather than turning into a clean, high-flying shootout. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Dallas Mavericks versus Orlando Magic. The Dallas Mavericks head to the Kia Center on Thursday to face the Orlando Magic in NBA action. Dallas is coming off losses to the Thunder and the Hornets, and with the Celtics waiting for them next, the schedule has not exactly been kind lately. The Mavs have dropped 14 of their last 16 games, and that kind of slide wears on confidence, even if the talent on paper still looks appealing. Orlando, meanwhile, recently stumbled against the Pistons, bounced back with a win over the Wizards, and has the Timberwolves on deck. The Magic have taken 7 of their last 11, which at least hints at some consistency and a group that is finding ways to string together results. The Mavericks are still dealing with a long injury list, with Marvin Bagley III, Kyrie Irving, and Derek Lively II all remaining out of the mix. There is at least a glimmer of good news with Cooper Flagg upgraded to questionable, and even that kind of small upgrade can change the mood in a locker room when a young piece might be available. On the other side, the Magic are still without Franz Wagner, and both Anthony Black and Wendell Carter Jr. are tagged as questionable, so their rotation is not exactly at full strength either. The Mavericks are one of the coldest teams in the league right now, but if Flagg is actually able to suit up, they have just enough juice to keep this from turning into a walkover. Dallas has owned this matchup recently, winning 8 of the last 10 meetings against Orlando, which does make it a bit tricky to completely write them off. The truth is, I still have not been particularly high on the Magic all season, even with their recent improvement, because their offense can stall, and they can look a bit choppy for long stretches. However, the Mavs have such a heavy injury report that it keeps dragging them down and making it tough for them to compete night after night, regardless of who they are playing. The Mavs have fallen to a 27-34 mark against the spread this season, which tells you how often the market has expected more from them than they could deliver. I do not exactly love trusting the Magic when they are asked to win by a decent margin, but looking at how Dallas is playing right now and how short-handed they are, it is even tougher to make a case for taking the points with the Mavs in their current state. As our first pick for this matchup, the Orlando Magic to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Dallas Mavericks are averaging 114.4 points per game on 47.3% shooting from the field, while giving up 117.7 points on 46.8% shooting on the defensive end. They are knocking down 34.2% of their three-point attempts and converting 74.5% of their free throws, and they are pulling in 44.7 rebounds per game, which helps create second chances and quick runouts when they do secure the ball. The Orlando Magic are putting up 115.1 points per game on 46.3% shooting, and they are allowing 114.6 points on 47.7% shooting to opponents. From beyond the arc, the Magic are hitting 34.4%, and they are much more solid at the line at 79.8%, which quietly matters a lot in higher scoring games where free throws pile up. They are giving up 35.8% shooting from 3 and grabbing 43.5 rebounds per game, numbers that fit the profile of a team comfortable trading buckets and playing through runs rather than locking every possession into a grind. When you put these profiles side by side, you get two teams that can score in the mid-100 teens, with defenses that are leaky enough to keep the scoreboard moving for most of the night. Dallas gives up plenty of points and relies on shot-making to stay afloat, and Orlando is not exactly a defensive juggernaut either, even if they can turn it up for stretches. Games with this kind of statistical mix often turn into stretches of quick offense, early clock shots, and long rebounds that feed transition chances, which all lean toward a more open and higher scoring style. Even with injuries on both sides, there are still enough capable scorers and enough vulnerability on defense that long droughts are less likely than extended spurts where both teams trade baskets. That sort of back-and-forth tempo, combined with the efficiency numbers each side has shown, makes a higher-scoring outcome more likely than a slow, low-scoring slugfest. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Brooklyn Nets versus Miami Heat. The Brooklyn Nets visit the Kaseya Center on Thursday to take on the Miami Heat in an NBA matchup. Brooklyn is coming off losses to the Heat and the Cavs, with the Pistons waiting for them next on the schedule, so the mood around the team is pretty flat right now. The Nets have dropped 24 of their last 28 games, which says plenty about where their confidence and focus are sitting at this stage of the season. Miami, on the other hand, just picked up wins over the Rockets and these same Nets, and they have the Hornets up next. The Heat have taken 6 of their last 9, which is not perfect, but it at least shows a group that is pushing in the right direction more often than not. Brooklyn is only slightly short on bodies here, with Igor Demine ruled out, so the rotation is not completely wrecked, but there is not a lot of upside talent waiting in the wings either. For Miami, Norman Powell, Simone Fontecchio, and Nikola Jovic are all out, so they are not at full strength, even if their core idea of how they want to play stays mostly intact. Facing the same opponent in back-to-back games is tricky, and it usually gives the losing side a small edge in adjustments and motivation, at least on paper. The problem for the Nets is that their recent form has turned ice cold, and it really feels like they are playing out the string more than chasing anything meaningful in the standings. I have been harsh on the Heat plenty of times this year, and I still do not love backing them when they are asked to cover a big number because their offense can stall and their effort can wobble at odd times. Even with that in mind, it is tough to ignore that Brooklyn is clearly in a tanking phase, has failed to cover in 9 of the last 10 games, and just lost to this same Miami team by 26 points on Tuesday. At the same time, for all the criticism, the Heat have quietly put together a profitable record against the number at 36-25-1, which means that if you have been riding them, your account looks better, not worse. They keep talking about being tired of living in the play-in range, and if that is really the mindset, then games like this against a struggling, checked-out opponent are the ones they have to handle with some urgency, with no room left for excuses. Given how cold Brooklyn has been and how clearly Miami needs to bank wins in spots like this, the Heat are simply more likely to cover again at home, even if trusting them never feels completely comfortable. As our first pick for this matchup, the Miami Heat to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Brooklyn Nets are averaging 107 points per game while shooting 44.4% from the field, and they are giving up 115 points on 49.3% shooting on the defensive side. They are hitting 34.1% of their three-point attempts and 77.2% of their free throws, and they pull down 40.4 rebounds per game, which is not terrible, but it is not quite enough to control the flow of games when they are constantly playing from behind. The Miami Heat are putting up 119.9 points per game on 46.3% shooting, and they are allowing 117.2 points on 45.8% shooting to their opponents. From deep, the Heat are connecting on 36.1% of their threes, and they are converting 78.5% at the free throw line, while giving up 35% from beyond the arc and grabbing 47.3 rebounds per contest. When you line these numbers up, you get a picture of two teams that allow plenty of clean looks and are very capable of putting points on the board when the pace picks up. Brooklyn's defense has been leaky and has struggled to contain efficient shooting, and Miami's defense, while better, still gives up enough scoring to keep games from grinding into slow, low-tally rock fights. On the offensive side, the Heat have been producing close to 120 points per outing, and even a struggling Brooklyn team can usually find enough offense to hang around the 110 mark when the game opens up. Those kinds of profiles, with both offenses more reliable than the defenses in front of them, often lead to matchups where runs come in bunches. The whistle adds free throws, and the scoreboard keeps moving rather than stalling for long stretches. So with both teams showing more scoring punch than resistance on most nights, it makes sense to lean toward a higher scoring game rather than expecting everything to suddenly clamp down and slow to a crawl. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Golden State Warriors versus Houston Rockets. The Golden State Warriors head into the Toyota Center on Thursday to take on the Houston Rockets in NBA action. Golden State is coming off losses to the Lakers and the Clippers, and the Thunder are waiting for them next, so this stretch is not exactly soft for them. The Warriors have dropped 9 of their last 14 games, and that type of run usually exposes every little flaw a team has. Golden State rarely settles for slow, static possessions. Their whole identity revolves around constant ball movement and bodies flying around off the ball. Screens, handoffs, and cuts stack on top of each other, which forces defenses to stay locked in on every second of a possession instead of just guarding one simple action. That style tends to keep their shot volume steady, even when the shots themselves do not always fall at a great clip. Houston leans in a different direction. They are at their best when games feel controlled and measured. The Rockets like to squeeze the tempo, set the terms of engagement on defense, and try to prevent opponents from stringing together quick scoring bursts. So you get a clear clash of styles. One team wants movement and tempo, the other wants structure and control. That kind of approach can absolutely help the Rockets win games, but it can also make it harder for them to run away from teams when they are asked to cover a big number. When the other side is catching close to double digits, being able to keep your offense humming for long stretches becomes incredibly important. Golden State's spacing and perimeter shooting give them multiple paths to stay within reach, even when the box score tilt feels a bit ugly for a while. All it takes is a couple of quick trips where they knock down threes, and a comfortable lead suddenly looks a lot more fragile. There is also the way these games can unfold late. If Houston builds a cushion, there is a natural tendency to ease off the gas and lean into a calmer pace. That slower rhythm can open the door for Golden State to string together a few more clean looks, push the ball a little, and sneak in a late scoring push that eats into the margin. Honestly, in a setup like this, their offensive style alone makes them a very live candidate to hang inside the number, even if they never really feel in full control. As our first pick for this matchup, the Golden State Warriors to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Golden State Warriors are averaging 115.6 points per game on 46.2% shooting from the field and allowing 114.1 points on 47.3% shooting. From beyond the arc, they are hitting 36% of their attempts, and they are knocking down 80.8% of their free throws, while pulling in 42.9 rebounds per game. The Houston Rockets are averaging 114.5 points on 47.5% shooting and holding opponents to 109.2 points on 45.6% shooting. They are shooting 36.9% from three-point range and 75.9% at the free throw line. On the defensive side from deep, they are allowing 34.5% and controlling the glass with 48.2 rebounds per game. Put together, these numbers show two offenses that can absolutely score, but there are some quiet hints that this matchup does not have to turn into a pure track meet. Golden State scores well, but they are not hyper-efficient enough to guarantee constant fireworks, especially if Houston's defense is able to set its structure and force them into tougher looks. Houston's own scoring output is solid, yet their defensive profile and rebounding strength suggest they are fully capable of dragging stretches of the game into more deliberate half-court battles. If the Rockets manage to steer the tempo toward that more measured style, possessions shrink a bit, every trip starts to matter more, and long, free-flowing runs of scoring can be harder to sustain for both sides. In that kind of environment, with decent shooting but controlled pacing and a defense on Houston's side that is better than it sometimes gets credit for, the overall scoring has a real chance to land under the expected range rather than exploding past it. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Toronto Raptors versus Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota comes into this matchup acting like a group that expects to be playing deep into spring, not just cashing regular season checks in March. They sit at 39-23 near the top of the Northwest, and that kind of record alone already speaks pretty loudly. Add in a 4-game heater since that loss in Philadelphia, with several of those wins picked up away from home, and you get a team walking into the arena with their shoulders back. Toronto, with its 35-26 mark, brings plenty of pride too, but that recent night where New York squeezed them down to 95 points and closed the faucet in the last few minutes still lingers a bit. You can almost sense the contrast in mood, Minnesota feeling like a group riding a wave, Toronto feeling more like a team trying to steady the wheel. The betting market has picked up on that and treats Minnesota as a solid home favorite, not by a tiny sliver but by a margin that clearly shows where the confidence lies. That respect is not about the jersey color, it is about how this version of the Timberwolves plays possession after possession, applying steady pressure instead of waiting for hot streaks to bail them out. They usually live in the neighborhood of triple digits with good shooting and a healthy diet of threes, while holding opponents to respectable totals so their wins feel earned rather than fluky. Think back to that wild meeting in Toronto when they entered the Raptors building, absorbed every run, and still escaped with a narrow, high-scoring road win behind a volcanic night from Anthony Edwards and a grind of front-court blows from Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, and Julius Randle. Games like that are not just about talent on paper, they show you which side keeps its identity when the crowd is loud and legs get heavy. Toronto's core of Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, and R.J. Barrett can all create and get to their spots, which looks great on clips, but it also funnels a lot of the offense into tough pull-ups and drives into a paint where Gobert is waiting and Minnesota is used to owning the glass and piling up blocks. Over this current stretch of wins, the story keeps repeating. The Wolves lean on their size, attack the rim and the boards, and by the closing minutes, Edwards and Randle are stepping into cleaner looks because the defense is a half step slower. That kind of script, where the bigger home team keeps its edge late, so often turns a small lead into something more comfortable instead of inviting a miracle comeback. So when you blend current form, matchup style, and how Minnesota has been finishing games at home, the side that makes the most sense against the number starts to come into focus. As our first pick for this matchup, the Minnesota Timberwolves to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. That last meeting flew into the 250s because both teams could not seem to miss. They both shot over 50% and rained in threes like it was an open gym where defense shows up late. Honestly, nights like that are fun, but they are the exception, and anyone who has sweated an under while watching a three-point barrage knows how strange those games feel. Across the season, both teams look more grounded, Toronto usually living in the low 100 teens with efficient field goal numbers and a steady handful of threes, and Minnesota sitting a bit higher with similar accuracy but leaning even more heavily into the long ball. That is what modern offense looks like, dangerous but not pure chaos, and it gives a base expectation that scoring will be strong without automatically rocketing into cartoon territory. Here's the thing, the injury context quietly tilts the picture too. Minnesota is missing Joe Ingles for personal reasons, and on the Toronto side, the report lists Colin Murray-Boyles and Chucky Hepburn is out, with Brandon Ingram dealing with that thumb issue as a game-time call. When a team loses rotation pieces like a young big such as Murray-Boyles and a reserve guard like Hepburn, coaches often shorten the bench, lean more on trusted ball handlers, and slow things down a bit, especially in a loud Western Conference arena where every careless turnover can snowball. If Ingram is even slightly limited by that thumb, it naturally nudges the Raptors toward more cautious half-court sets instead of constant up-and-down action. That is speculation, sure, but it matches the pattern you see around the league when depth and ball handling thin out. Minnesota's recent wins also tell a quieter story about defense. In 3 of their last 4 victories, they have kept opponents near or under the 110 mark, including that suffocating night against the Clippers and a controlled effort against Denver. On the other side, Toronto just got dragged into a low-scoring grind against New York, held under 100 and forced into a steady diet of contested looks, which is not exactly the recipe for another 250-point sequel. Put that all together and you can picture a game that lands more often in the low 220s, where both sides still find their moments but long stretches feature strong defense, contested shots, and a little bit of clock milking rather than non-stop fireworks. Given these versions of the Raptors and Timberwolves, the total that feels most comfortable is the one that benefits from a few empty trips, some long rebounds, and a scoreboard that climbs steadily instead of exploding. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.